or do you mean then when you first said now?
Okay, so this is now G. Okay, Campbell, welcome.
Everything.
This thing.
Right.
We just earlier today watched an episode. Which episode was it?
We watched Wink of an Eye.
Yeah, that's right. I actually, as we were talking about earlier, I watched a lot of Deep Space Nine afterwards. Which
Did it totally confuse you?
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a mistake because a lot of things I want to talk about in those Deep Space Nine episodes. But I watched a bad Deep Space Nine episode just to like get me out of that zone.
To cleanse
so
the
now
palate?
I'm back. Yeah, it was that episode where Vedic Bareil comes from the alternate universe, and then.
Fair enough, but I think for a lot of procedural reasons, we shouldn't get too hung up on the episode that we didn't watch. And the less said about Vedic Bareil, the better. But anyway.
All right, fine. So now, okay, do you want to do the synopsis?
Sure.
Or do you want me to do the synopsis?
Okay, so.
No, go ahead.
So the Enterprise goes to a planet. They find it uninhabited, but previously inhabited, like a large civilization there built up. There was a message.
Well, there were people who were like sending a distress signal. They went to that planet because
yeah. Maybe I yada over that, but yeah. So they were sending a distress signal. Oh, help us! Something's going on. Whatever. Being very kind of vague. The Enterprise gets there. There's nobody to be found. They kind of wander around. Jim, Bones, McCoy, Spock and McCoy, and one random redshirt. And you can kind of tell something's going to happen, right? Because of the way it's framed, it's like focusing in, like really on the red shirt. And he's like, he's just too happy to be there, So something's going to happen. Anyway, all of a sudden, they're still looking for people. They hear like a little buzzing in their ear, and then sides with the red shirt just like spontaneously vanishing right in front of Bones. And they try. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they try and find out where he went, what happened to him, and they go back and forth from the planet to the ship and try and deduce things for a while. And the episode really doesn't get started until such time as they detect the same presence they felt on the planet on the ship. Basically, just like Kirk hears just like a buzzing in his ear and hears, gets the sense of some kind of alien presence that he feels keeps touching him, but there's nothing there. And
okay, but then it's this TV guide. Basically, Kirk finds that these people are moving so fast that you can't even see them, and they want to mate with somebody other than themselves because they can't have kids. So they want to suck out a few good male specimens, Kirk being one of them, and then they want to freeze the rest of the ship so that they can use them as like a breeding stock. But Kirk finds out how to delay them and tell his comrades what they're up to, and then they basically disarm them, kick them off the ship, and re-slow down back to normal speed.
Yeah, that's a good substitution. That's good. That was the proper gear.
Okay, now Campbell, did you like this episode?
Yeah. I mean, I'll qualify that. I enjoyed it, and I did like it. Yeah, but we'll get into the reasons why I don't think it's a good episode in a bit. But anyway, what about you? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I liked it. It's not one that I have like a lot of strong memories from, so it doesn't leave like a super huge impression. No, but like in terms of like concept, it's like one of the better concepts. And I was actually when you guys told me like which episode it was, I made the pseudo mistake of like looking up on Wikipedia like about that episode, and I was like,
what, you mean you didn't remember it?
No, I remember the guy. Fuck off! I remember the episode. I'm just saying that like anyway, I just wanted to see what Wikipedia had to say about the episode. And,
oh my god, I forgot to do the IMDb. Anyway, whatever. Continue.
Yeah, but actually, it's like a little bit embarrassing. Like they have some really good comments that are a little bit beyond us.
Oh, really? So, all right. So it's the duties are.
Yeah, so I've forgotten those comments now. But like Wikipedia has like, it was like on Wikipedia, like they took many paragraphs to describe like technical issues and plot issues and being like, well, if they had the technology to do this, then why couldn't they do this? And like really, silly stuff. I was just surprised that kind of shit made it onto Wikipedia. In fact, those comments are like beyond what I would ever contribute on this episode. But anyway, that aside, I liked the episode. I thought the concept was awesome. I like the fact that it's Kirk focused.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so okay. The other thing about this episode is, because like it kind of semi annoys me that people talk about Kirk as being a ladies' man, and he's been with so many like women, but there are actually like very few instances where you can say 100% for sure, he had intercourse with somebody.
It's very much a generalization based on a reputation rather than actual,
but the reputation it doesn't even make sense because like Kirk in the Academy days when Finnegan is his like tormentor
was a total nerd,
a total dork.
Yeah.
And then afterwards on the Enterprise, he's like Mr. Duty. So it's kind of like, where the fuck does this reputation come from? And so I think it's that basically because women are always like into him like straight away. People just say, okay, he's obviously like a ladies' man. Anyway, there's not that much evidence that he actually like actually full on seduces that many women. But this is one episode for sure where he did it. Gamble, can you name the other?
But it's like. But we also have to be familiar with the tricks that the writers use, because they always want to present certain kinds of situations, and they always find ways around kind of presenting them in like a traditional way, right? And offering.
But Campbell,
kind of what they did for. So, yeah.
Campbell, I mean, there's only like two things that they can do to say that for sure it was like sex. Like just.
No, I'm not talking about.
Like you see, because if Kirk wakes up next to a woman in bed, okay, fine, that's suggestive enough.
I know about the Hays Code, yes.
So for instance, in Bread and Circuses, there's a slave girl who's sent to please him, and he goes to sleep, and he wakes up, and the slave girl's no longer there. So it's not 100% certain that that was
like a specific omission to avoid the direct visual implication that there had been. In fact,
well, sex. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that there's no reason to conclude that there was. This one, although he didn't wake up in bed with her, he's putting on his boots. So that means.
You know what? I can only fault myself. I'll flagellate myself later. But yeah, I guess I must not have been paying attention during all the transition scenes. But good work for picking that up, because I think you're right. According to like the TV code itself, like putting on your boots is like pretty much as far as they could go visually towards showing what had happened between them. That's a good metaphor for it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And if they're putting their clothes back on while they're both in the same room, then yes, that counts. So on that basis, like I think Kirk.
But I mean,
I can't think of that many. Like which other ones? But
I mean, but obviously, what we end up seeing is a reflection of what they feel they could get past the censors, because they are always trying to sneak one past.
But that's fine. But we have to stick with the basic rules of the game. They have to be getting their clothes on in the same room, and that indicates that they were disrobed in front of each other. So on that basis, how many times has Kirk actually had sex with people that we know of?
Are you asking me this question now?
Yeah.
Is it a non-hypothetical question? Do you have an answer?
Well, yeah. Like I'm saying, how many times have we seen it in the series?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, that requires going back and taking better notes.
Yeah, like I mean, so there's the Bread and Circuses where the slave girl was there, and he maybe did something, but we don't know. The only time that I'm pretty damn sure it's guaranteed is Mirror Mirror episode, where he stays with whatever her name is in her quarters. Then I think it's like pretty much like okay, that's
it's understood. It's implicit, yes. But yeah. I don't know why you're getting so hung up on this. I don't know. Is this?
Well, it's just.
Don't they mention in the movie? Doesn't he talk about how he used to sleep around or had lots of girlfriends at one point? Like that comes up at some point with him. Maybe not explicitly showing it on the show, but referencing that his wild type of stuff.
It's true. Right? It's true. I can think of 3 ex-girlfriends that show up.
Yeah, and all of them allude to his wild past, right? Even if they don't say specifically, like they're always like, you were always, you always know the next thing type of thing, and he's like, yeah, I was a terrible kid.
It's true, yeah.
No.
The pattern was established. No, it's true, yeah.
No, it's not.
We see a precedent, we see a pattern established,
generations,
and we can assume that even though we don't see more, there's lots more to see.
And Generation was all about the regret of not having stayed with a woman properly, like.
Yeah, we've previously been introduced to, by the way. So
was like no. This time I'll be faithful to a woman.
Yeah, but that doesn't. No, it's not that he's going to be faithful to a woman. It just means that he's going to be faithful to a woman other than the Enterprise. That is the only lack of faith he's ever shown. Anyway, so he's had ex-girlfriends, tons of those, but in terms of him like just sleeping randomly with chicks, like very little of that in the series. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay,
now let's just move on. Let's get into the goddamn episode.
All right.
So,
but like,
what?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, okay. All right. Well, what I was going to say before, what I was in the process of saying was how the writers throw you a curveball, right? Because they don't ever want it depicted as just like a straight, conventional, interaction where there's like a normal or equal balance of power. They always want to sort of mess with it, And the whole thing about this episode is, the reoccurring theme of basically like men being put in like a pseudo-sexual situation that's like against their will by an other, and being forced into a situation without their consent, And in this case, we have there's a whole bunch of tropes. There's the being forced to help repopulate an alien species, or being forced, held captive by a woman against a man's will. You see a lot of these tropes come through.
Okay, first of all, are you finding any fault with that?
I'm just trying to explain this right now.
Okay, all right, sorry. I thought you were finding fault with the fact that they were,
I haven't got to the faults yet. I'm just explaining the structure of like.
Well, what's the point? Make your goddamn point.
Geez, sorry, Russi. So the point is, the characters are put in situations where they're basically forced to basically do like fan service for the audience and like be put into amorous situations with the opposite sex. They don't want to have to do it. It's not convenient, but they're forced to. So it's like an excuse, and it's a way of putting the characters in that position without having any of like the normal moral baggage associated with that kind of stuff, because it's like you can just jump right into it, and it's like not only is there it's like a contrivance, but you're forced into it, and so and in this there's there's a lot of the weird dom sub thing of like of totally being at the mercy of this person who's incidentally or maybe not the opposite sex, and who incidentally or maybe not wants to sleep with you, and we see we see lots of different variations on that kind of theme over the 3 seasons, and like definitely expressing the subconscious desire of the writers. Let's put it that way. Along with the thing of like being controlled by women, Orion slave girls, or the Elan of Troyes, they're chemically forced them to do whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree. But it's not that they're subconsciously putting their fantasies in there; they are consciously putting in the fantasies of their demographic in the episode.
I think that's the excuse they use, but whatever. I guess.
But anyway, Campbell, even if they were like, what would be wrong with that? Like, it's it's a
again, I'm not finding fault with that. I'm just explaining the structure of it and why they do the things they do. Because the whole point is, Kirk is put in a situation of basically of like tactical and sexual subjugation, and he's got to find a way out of it. So he does the usual James Bond thing of like whatever, you act however you need to, you drop pride. If you have to, you become whatever's necessary to achieve the mission and get the job done. Yeah. And in this case, he basically has to pretend to go along with the plans of Dila, who we should mention is like the head alien of the aliens, who we should mention are also the Skolosians. And they're and the reason they weren't detected initially is because they were hyper accelerated. And what they do in abducting Kirk is basically accelerate him and bring him up to their speed so that they can interact. And and so they're going about the ship at hyperspeed, and while all the rest of the crew are basically depicted standing around as stone statues because they're at regular speed. And therefore, anyway, I know you know this. I'm not explaining it for you.
Okay, but it was a cool concept, was it not?
Well, that's just it. I think, yes, the concept is cool, but I have never not disagreed with their execution, because it's just, on the face of it, incongruous and makes no mathematical ratio sense, from a physics standpoint, from anything. And I think, although it also has its errors, the same concept of extreme time dilation is handled much better in the Voyager episode, with the donut planet and the Doctor who gets sent to the... Anyway, whatever. But
Yeah,
anyway,
okay,
so it's like
okay,
the point is it
but it's
makes
not,
no goddamn sense.
wait, why does it make no sense?
What are you
It
talking
makes
about? Are you saying you don't understand it? No, because because if we are to gauge anything about like the speed at which Kirk is accelerated, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone else basically appears totally motionless. He shoots a
Yeah.
phaser and
Yeah.
it goes like at molasses speed, and he's able,
Yeah.
you know, just like so. I mean, so we're talking, and you know, I had to seriously ask myself, well, I mean,
So
was
he's
there something
moving
wrong with the
faster than the speed
phaser?
of light.
And like, and does a phaser for real go at the speed of light? And if so, how are they exceeding it? You know, so they're
Yeah.
going at least within that range. You know, and,
Yeah.
and it would be so much even different if like it was just like a regular show and they shot a bullet and like that bullet was traveling because you did for
Yeah.
you know time dilation based on that. So
Yeah, yeah,
basically, what we're saying is there's like, what do you think the total rough estimate runtime from the perspective of the crew is? Do you think it's like a couple hours, 4 hours, 5
Something
hours,
like that,
a day?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Campbell, like maybe they
So
were
and so from extrapolating that, what is the time ratio of Kirk, and how much time does Kirk spend in this accelerated space? This never bothered you at all?
no, like that
It would
doesn't bother
be
me.
years. It would be generations. It would be so ridiculous.
Yeah, you mean
It did not.
okay.
And anyway, and it's interesting because the times where you saw the real extent of the stretch, I enjoyed it, right? When there's like 3 or 4 scenes go by in Kirk time, and they go in and out of the transporter room, and Scotty's still there in the door frame.
I know, but
perpetually
Spock
in the act
somehow-
of running through.
Yeah, but Spock
You know?
is somehow like moved between decks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah, okay, fine.
And
I mean, yes. So
so that kind of stuff. And so I
that's like
noticed
minor.
when it
That's like minor.
it's
like,
minor for you, but it wasn't minor for you. The point is, I noticed it now, and I even noticed it when I was a kid. You know, it never made sense to me, and always ticked me off. Beyond that, I thought, well, beyond that, I have additional problems, but whatever.
Okay, but it is a cool concept, right? Like, because if you were
Yes, it
moving,
is cool.
like,
Yeah,
if you were moving
it's
like
cool, but
a
they
good
fucked it up.
fraction, if you were moving a fraction of the speed of light, I think your brain would edit that out. You know what I mean?
but like it's still, it's like the point is, if I think a better way to do it would have been to have more representation of that huge time dilation ratio, and like to get a sense of like maybe it's like months or years.
Yeah, I know.
Perspective.
Yeah, but this is not like a 10-episode story arc. Like
I know, but
it could happen.
Other episodes have done it. You know, what about the DS9 episode where whatever. Anyway, but the point is, I think they could have done it any number of different ways, but they did not, and I just the execution of that concept bugged me. Also, various sub-elements of their plan, like the Skolosian plan, that never bugged you. It was like how it was so like, just kind of like thrown together at the last minute. They're kind of playing it by ear. It's like it's just you didn't get a sense of a huge amount of organization on their part.
No, they've been doing this for generations, Campbell. Generations.
They haven't been doing it well, and the whole point is like, right? Okay, so they abduct Kirk because all of their we find out that either because of hyper acceleration or other reasons, I wasn't super paying attention, that all the men of their planet are sterile or whatever. So they're down to like the last couple of dudes out of a population of 1 million, which was supposed to sound like impressive. I don't know, whatever.
Their planet was like 900,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine 900,000 people on a planet. Whoa. Whoa. Anyway, yeah. So all the men are sterile, so they need to abduct other presumably compatible, conveniently alien males to repopulate the species, and they go about this in a very strange, sexy way, And the second they get this potential Kirk the potential sperm in the form of Kirk in the room with Deela, with the intention of maybe carrying out some kind of aspect of the plan. Like I don't know how much sex was going on apart from that. Maybe some additional incidental Skolosian sex. But like pretty much the second it starts getting in that direction, like her second in command, like the male guy dressed in shower curtains. Well, all the males were dressed in like shower curtains, but whatever. He like bursts in and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then he starts attacking Kirk as though like, what did he think was going to happen? Like how committed to the plan is he if he just completely forgets about the plan and flies into a fit of like jealous rage to like kill her like girlfriend's boyfriend?
Yeah, that was a hard scene because because Kirk always does what he always accepts the rules of the episode, whatever they are. But sometimes they're so undignified, like in the last episode, which is painful, where he had to like pretend to be a horse. But in this episode, the deal is if you get even a scratch. Good. So like it was just so hard to see Kirk, getting accosted by this guy and cowering. Like he had like a chair between him and this guy. He was cowering.
Do you think that's better or worse than the pillow scene?
Which pillow?
Where he defends himself like over an extended period of time with like a pillow, like using it to parry, then eventually throwing it at the guy.
No, I was just making sure you're talking about this episode. Yeah, that was good. It did make me rewatch some Naked Gun episodes actually, and there's clips on YouTube after that. But no, the pillow defense was good. It was logical. It was just it was just hard to see Kirk cower.
I mean, I do agree with you in this context that yes, actually, it was logical the way it was carried out. But and I guess my complaint is the same as yours, that it was basically undignified to watch.
And actually, I guess the thing that the episode lacked was like tension, or any apprehension. Because the thing is,
right from the beginning, they supplanted genuine threats. The possibility of sex.
It was like a Doctor Who episode because. Like the villain, because it's always like neutered, those Doctor Who episodes, because everyone is always like, well, this is the fucking Doctor, he's omnipotent, and the entire episode,
it's just the British are uptight. That's all.
Yeah, the entire episode, like the villain acknowledges that the guy's omnipotent, and he acknowledges that he's omnipotent, and he's like, oh, just a little while until I end this whole scheme of yours, and they're like, okay, well, let me walk you through it first. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with this Delia, because she's like. She's like, oh, I really like you. You're the best, but you're probably scheming against me, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm not. She's like, come on, you're scheming. And he's like, okay, I'm scheming. And she's like, you really got to stop that. But she doesn't like come down on her. What did you think about that? Well, I mean, it was. I like the fact that as a villain, she was like three-dimensional. She was sort of like, come on, please stop scheming. But she wasn't like doing the standard thing of being easily fooled. So, for instance, like when he sabotages the transporter, she's like, you sabotaged the transporter, didn't you? And he's like, yeah.
Like, well,
she's like, hey, stop doing that. And then he goes, and then he tries to seduce her. And tries to seduce her, and she's like, hey, stop trying to take my disruptor weapon. And he's like, oh, okay, I won't try and take your disruptor weapon. And then
I've been a bad little boy.
Yeah, and then she just keeps like playing along until he does take the disruptor weapon. So it was kind of in the bag for Kirk right from the beginning.
I mean, that's
what made it palatable was. Kirk just sort of like, turning on the charm, and his co-star being exceptionally charming.
That was what did it for you?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Sorry, I don't mean to always sound like I'm trying to.
No, because the other thing was like I didn't think, because like often like Kirk has to come up with some clever way to get out of this thing, but in this case,
he just waited until he was close enough to like grab it away from her and basically took 100% advantage that if he wanted to, he could grab her wrist and like basically totally immobilize her. Yeah. So which is sobering to think about, but yeah, the entire plan basically rested on that.
Yeah, and like I guess Spock. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things I don't understand. Like, so at the end of the episode, Spock has like a cure for this hyper acceleration, and instead of like sharing it with these Scallians or whatever the fuck they're called, he's just sort of like, okay, well, we're going to send you back to the planet and like, put like a sort of warning buoy around this planet so no one ever comes here and falls for your trick again. He's like, see ya.
And that's that. I mean, yes. They specifically hide it from the Scallians.
Yeah.
They're like you'll be stuck like this forever, and they're like, sure.
Yeah, in fact, she's even like, well, if you're also going to be stuck like this forever, like, why don't you like, come down and bouncy, and he's like, no, like, but he doesn't explain that like they've got like an insta cure. In fact, I don't even know if Kirk knows at that point. But my point is, why don't they just cure those like those people?
Well, I mean, that is a good question, but it could come down to the fact that, I mean, even though, an entire planet and basically genocide is at stake, they were still like, 5 minutes previously, the enemy, in Dealer's words, and like someone who, was facing an aggressor try to,
take over the ship.
Yeah. So, I mean, I imagine that was their first and foremost sort of thought. But I also thought it was weird that they basically chose not to explicitly investigate the diplomatic option, Although I had another reading for it at the time, because maybe it was just implied that like Spock wasn't necessarily curing that planet's problem. He was just finding a way to reverse the drug that they had administered. So maybe there was never any saving that. Maybe it was just like reversing the process of accelerating the.
Yeah,
but again, it's like it never really made sense
that their thing is more permanent and.
Yeah, but again, these questions are left unanswered. But on the other hand, I don't care. So.
Okay, fine. Go through this. Go through your notes. What did you like? What did you dislike?
Well, it's I did like it. It's weird, right? Okay, because I got issues with the writing and the execution, and there was some
the
6-year-old. Say what?
There was some laziness. Like at the beginning, Scotty says something like, "We're registering something." Like, what the fuck is he talking about? It's just like, can you be more explicit?
This rewatch particularly, I become aware and annoyed with like really how vague the techno jargon they use is, But at the same time, I can see one of us being in that situation and like looking at a device and like readings are all over the place, and you're like, I don't fucking know, man. You come over here and look at it. You tell me, and but that's not among my my problems. But it's weird, right? But when you think about the episode in your mind, it's like yada yada yada, ship nominally gets abducted, Kirk gets abducted basically and put into like fast time, and with these other aliens, and spends the rest of the episode trying to get out of that. Weren't you surprised by how slow they got into it? Like they should have done that like way sooner in the plot, basically to get Kirk in that spot where he's like having to deal with the alien problem. That would have maybe made it much more realistic and interesting to get to know the aliens in a different way, and to maybe build up a more nuanced relationship where the whole time it's just like he's being held hostage or captive or whatever, essentially on his own ship. Can't really interact with them, although he does leave a bunch of computer notes, which is nice. But it's treated like a seduction, right? It's treated like a playful kind of like well, like you said, and like and when they play the game, it's like you said, it's a game. It's like when they play the game of like each one trying to trick the other. It's like you got me, and I could just hear fucking Seth MacFarlane's voice, and I'm like, no, this is not doing it for me. But again, it's just like the way. No, it's okay. I'm being too hard on it. I like the way, like the playful way that Kirk interacted, but like the way in which his character chose to sell the idea that he was like brainwashed by her, because like we got the sense that like the other red shirt who was zapped into their time and he previously died. Yeah, he was basically totally brainwashed. And like
exactly, and it didn't make sense. Do they give a drug to you, or they're just sort of like, well, I'm so attractive that at some point his will is just going to snap and he's going to be like, I'm totally on board with this.
Or maybe they were just lucky in choosing like the crew member with the absolute lowest sense of duty and responsibility. I have no idea, But this point is somehow, they were able to brainwash him, and because we didn't really understand how the mechanism was working, over the course of Kirk realizing he's powerless because he tried once to grab the thing and he couldn't. He does the thing where he has to make his captor, his Deela, and us, the audience, believe that he's like, now subjugated, which how like, Shatner does by just like sitting on the edge of the bed. Wait, I can't do it. I don't know. Yeah. And just staring into like staring into space. And basically like with a blank expression. And we're supposed to, from that believe that. Well, I don't know what we're supposed to believe, but that was his way of slowing over Deela and winning eventually.
There was some laziness in this episode. Like they had a thing where Delia had like another boyfriend.
Delia, but not well.
Whatever. And then he was jealous. And then after Kirk pretended to be a zombie and she was no longer into Kirk, she like apologized to him and she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And he's like, I know. But then when she finds out that Kirk is really not P-whipped and totally, as alpha male as she liked him to be at the beginning, then she's like back into him and she's like forgotten like her reconciliation with the other dude. Because remember in by any other name when when Rojan gets back together with Kalendra, whatever.
I forget also. But Calandra sounds right.
Calandra, yeah. But when they get back together,
it is a very similar situation, eh? It's like the ship is taken over by kind of like swinger aliens. That's what it is. It's like they're uninvited. They show up on your ship and they're like, "You don't move. You have sex with that person." I don't know. Well, maybe it's not exactly the same, but there's still the same kind of like alien swinger kind of thing.
Yeah, it's similar. I guess they just in the little details they didn't really follow through. There's like a lot of non follow through.
True, but you get the sense that like the way the crew reacted to them is like, again, typical of the way the crew seem to react to any kind of problem that has like a female element, where they're like, it's like, maybe they're being bared down on by some kind of potential alien threat, but if the alien threat is like female, at least half of them are willing to be like, let's see where this is going.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. It's the vision I get from the world depicted through Star Trek is that they thought, maybe it was the 60s, but they thought having sex was going to be really important in the future. I think they were like, in the future they're going to have even more sex.
Yeah. A couple things didn't make sense to me, like when they asked the computer, like, basically like what's going on, and then they're at some point they're
that's particularly lazy.
I know, and then they're like, have we been invaded? And the computer's like, yeah. Why don't they just like have an alarm permanently in the computer and be like, next time we're invaded, fucking tell us?
No, I agree, but it's kind of like a red dwarf problem. You can't expect the computer to be so intelligent that it thinks to look out for that kind of stuff, even if it's obviously happening. It's like, you mean it didn't know until it was asked, and it like, it's like, whoa, sorry guys, I think it's a Holly level problem.
Yeah, and then also like at certain points, like Spock is like reviewing like what happened earlier, and he just has like he has like the footage of the actual episode.
Yes, I objected to that as well, but I also thought it was maybe explainable by some facet of like the data being recorded by the tricorder, but it also made no sense.
No, it could have been the tricorder because it sort of like looks like it's pseudo coming from the position that Spock was standing in, so maybe.
But then it's like, but why does the camera angles change so dramatically? It's like, But did you notice how
we addressed that in the game, right? Where we decided that all motion detecting cameras should have AIs like have direct royal
or designed to like zoom in at dramatic moments.
Yeah, so
as to make the
cameras for the be like good at identifying problems, but they would do it in a dramatic way that increased the tension of the moment.
And did you notice how?
Wait, go ahead.
Sorry, no, continue. I was just going to prompt you. Go on.
No, I was just going to say some of the things I liked. I liked the fact that Kirk just said, like, we will not negotiate, like, straight away. I like the fact that when Spock was, like, asking, where Kirk had gone, he's sort of like, Uhura, what happened kind of thing. And she's like, well, I was talking to him. And then he disappeared. And then he's like, Sulu, verify. And then Sulu just, like, does the same thing. I like that. It's how I feel about, concise, militaristic kind of like way they operate. In the same way that when Kirk is running around, when Kirk is running around the ship and he just sees Spock and he's like, oh fuck, Spock figured it out. He doesn't have to say anything. He's just sort of like, follow me.
Yeah.
And then the two of them get to business. That's pretty good.
The moment of unspoken nonverbal communication between two trusting friends.
Yeah.
What did you think about the way that Spock eventually clued into the problem and eventually solved it? Like, it's like he did the kind of thing where you could see the idea brewing.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, they didn't even really spell out how he solved it. He just sort of, like, watched and...
But, like, I mean, it was so dumb. I mean, the way they played out him coming to the solution. Even before that, it seemed like he suggested, like verbally, that he had like some idea as to what the nature of the problem was. Then he goes to the bridge and starts reviewing the footage, and he's watching footage of the Skolosians, and he's kind of playing with the editing
button
scrubber tool, and starts like slowing it down and speeding it up. But like for some reason he has like the complete opposite impulse, and he's like, hey, I wonder what would happen if I slowed the Skolosians down. Like, what is that? Anyway, I just love how completely wrong and counterintuitive it was, like in the complete wrong logical direction, and how like basically what he did in the end is like, hey, I wonder what happens if you just turn the speed up on the Skolosian speech, and he does it enough, and like it becomes that mosquito sound, and he's like, whoa, so that's the Skolosian, as if that would be any different from any other audio that you could take anywhere, and like any footage of people anywhere, and then like speed it up And like, so as though he somehow needed to be like, you know, he had to slowly walk himself through the process. Like, wait a second, if you speed stuff up, it makes it sound higher pitch. And it was like very slow connections being made in his head. And I just thought that was the one weird instance of like seeing the Vulcan thought process and being utterly like not impressed with. I mean, obviously we're as an audience meant to have come to the conclusion first, but like really, you get the feeling that like it was pretty slow on Spock's.
And not only that, then they're like, okay, what we need is speed up juice. Let's do that off camera in half a second.
Yeah. There was no phase 3 trials on these fucking drugs. They just he just
which is you know,
and that's the lab, and then Spock's just sort of like, man.
Yeah, it's like, is it ready? I don't know. Quick,
you
know, and
it's just the disparity between the long, slow process of figuring out that they're faster to the quick, like boom, it's done. We matched up the function for you, motherfucker. You're good to go.
Yeah. Turns out it's just Red Bull and milk.
Yeah, so there was a lot of like laziness, and I especially did not like the last line that Spock gave, where he said that he found it an accelerating experience.
Yeah, oh my god,
that's not a fun. I've never heard anyone ever say that.
No, it's not. Yeah,
and I found it an accelerating experience. I've never heard that.
No, he might as well have looked at the camera and gone radical. Or like, I don't know. What was some other weird stuff? There was so when Kirk is sabotaging stuff randomly around the ship to like impede the Skolosians in their job, and he messes up the transporter somehow, and then he does a bit to it, and like and Deela's talking to her like her communicator or whatever, and like trying to explain the situation to the other guy. And you never get exactly clear what the kind of power sharing arrangement between them is, because sometimes she seems to be like justifying herself to him, and other times she's like just clearly in charge. But like where she was like, it's like there's in. I mean, maybe, yeah. There's seem, but like she was like, there's some kind of, how do you say it, malfunction, and like as though like in her species there wouldn't be such a word, and like, you know, it made no sense to say it, or like, and how again okay, maybe I thought this was kind of charming actually, but only in the way that like, you know, if your kids play had put on a production of this episode. And they had made that machine that the Skolosians make to like put in engineering to basically like their plan was to like freeze the whole ship maybe and put everyone in it in like suspended cryosleep so that they could be used and taken out like frozen meat and thawed and sexually used and then disposed of. You know, like we're all going to be hopefully one day. But like how their device to do this was said to yourself. was like it was basically just like. It was basically just like an air conditioner. And that's exactly what it looked like. And they tried their best to make it look futuristic, but no. It was like a box, and there was a hole in the box, and there was two, like, dryer ducts coming out. And at one point, there was, like, obviously a dryer duct, like, folding it in itself. Like, why bother having it? You know, anyway, it was very amateurish and sort of grade 9 sort of level of...
yeah, and it was pretty foolish of Captain Kirk to just sort of, like, hold his hands on that buzzer. You know, like, it didn't make any sense. He was like warned away, and he still did it.
That might be a favorite scene. It's the look of defiance, like I will hurt myself for as long as necessary.
Yeah,
because he was instructed not to touch it, and he ended up having to touch it. And
so I mean, my love for the episode is shallow in that, like, I really found the co-star attractive. And
I can understand that. I mean, I gotta say same for some reason.
Yeah, and I liked the concept a lot. Like, the concept is really fucking cool.
And just the sci-fi concept.
The sci-fi concept. If they did that today, like in a you know, a sort of like mini series or something like that, I think it'd be pretty fucking fun. And it's almost believable. It's like close to believable.
I mean, you know, I obviously had my slight technical issues with it. But, I mean, didn't you also find it weird how, in the end, basically, you know, when Kirk gains tactical superiority, basically the situation is over. And he basically, you know, sends her down to the planet and, like, you know, just, you know, ignores them, basically, from that point on. But before that happens, he's got to have a conversation with her. And he basically has to, like, explain the idea of, like, consent to her. and it's like it's not cool to do stuff without asking people first. And I thought it was like very sort of if that's the only like a strong intellectual moral thing they could draw from the episode, then yeah, it wasn't super inspiring.
Yeah, and
like, no, abduct people and force them to have sex is wrong.
And also, Churchill had like a little bit more like sympathy for the fact that like their species was like destroyed by radiation and is almost extinct, you know.
But also, he, you know, what he said, which is like, you know, and instead of using subterfuge, you know, you could have just, you know, legitimately come to us and ask for help, and we maybe probably would have, you know. Although, yeah, I guess we'll never know.
Well, except they waved that away and saying that, oh, we tried other things, but you know.
Yeah, but like, yeah, but yeah, I think poor writing in some instances. And then of course at the end, yeah, like you said, they make the cure, or Spock at least has one cure with him, which he gives to Kirk. And
I do like that last little scene where a Spock stays at super speed and like fixes all the things on the bridge, because that's cool.
Because
that's actually,
isn't that what you would want to do in that situation? Like the weird twist of like it's like a very like gamer thing to do of like excellent. Now we got this. You know, we should do. I'm gonna get on my to-do list. I'm going to repaint the lower deck. It's
now like Harry Potter levels of inconsistency in the universe, because they now have the power to move faster than the Flash, and it took them a few minutes to develop that power.
And seemingly without any deleterious effects as well.
Whatsoever. So why don't they just keep doing it?
Yeah, why don't they just keep using it? So okay, yeah. So
I don't know. Maybe it's like, why do they never go back to the Guardian of Forever? You know, there's got to be some kind of Federation group saying, you know.
No, because that's sort of like don't fuck with time, because you could end up like empowering the Nazis or whatever.
Okay, like, I mean, sorry, yes, obviously yes, but like why? But like every other cool planet they go to, what are little girls made of? Why don't they just go back and use the robot making machine right over there to make some robots? You know, and you know maybe. Well,
yeah, I mean they probably do send some people down to like examine it afterwards, but I mean like they're not Roger Corby. They can't just sort of like use it. Only Roger Corby can. Yeah. All right. So they definitely made quite a few mistakes in this one.
What about when you know where he's like mansplaining a phaser to Deela, and he's like, "I'm gonna press this button, and something's gonna shoot out of here and shoot you. Hang on, stay still." And you know, and then she dodges the weapon, and then she takes out her own, and she seems to be explaining it as though it's like somehow analogous to the phaser. And then she's like, "See, I'll show you." And then she presses the button, and somehow the phaser goes, and like, and just like flies out of his head. It's like, whoa! What button did she press?
Alien has like a sonic screwdriver that just sort of like
exactly
for that scene.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like this is the escape from Witch Mountain button, and when I press it, all the objects just like fly into the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the Spock repairing the whole ship at the end.
Anyway, fine. So not a great episode is our summation, but it gives some good escapism and not like depressing or makes you, you know, sometimes like the quiet episodes they make you feel lonesome. This one didn't. This one was like a fun romp. Would you agree that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, compared to next week's Empath, this is definitely a fun romp.
You know, Empath actually, I think I can't remember, one of the big three loved it as like their favorite episode or something like that. Maybe McCoy.
What do you mean the big three?
Well, like DeForest, Nimoy, or Shatner.
Those big three. I'm sorry.
Yeah, one of them was like big time into it, and it's like
it was probably DeForest.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm speculating, but whatever. We'll go back and check the games. I feel really ashamed I didn't check the IMDb for that.
As a little sidebar, because we don't have as much juice as we normally have from the episode, I was just thinking, you know, in terms of like sci-fi. I can't remember I got into this discussion, but just sort of like if there's any cultures other than sort of like the West that really have like their own version of sci-fi, or if they're just copycats of, you know, like the early sci-fi, you know, there were versions, you know, UK, America, probably, you know, France and a few other places, but like,
I think I know where this is going, and I don't like it.
So I'm just curious, like, why we don't see like good, different sci-fi from like other cultures. They always seem to just be aping the Americans, you know. Like if you see Chinese sci-fi, like The Wandering Earth, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like it's like an American thing done, you know, with Chinese script, Chinese actors kind of thing.
Are you
Same with like
Japan in the west of this? Because Japan.
What's that? Japan, yeah. Actually, Japan. We came up with that answer, which is Japan is the only one that seems to have their own unique fucking take on sci-fi. Everyone else.
But again, I think you're just suffering from like an Anglo-centric view where that's the only stuff that you're aware of. And there's actually a whole universe of stuff that exists out there that you just have no idea about.
Campbell, have you seen the Bollywood version of Superman?
Why? What's it called?
I don't know what it's fucking called, but it is.
What's the robot one? The robot
very
is
derivative.
Well,
yeah, most
yeah,
very
anyway,
derivative. But okay, so other than the Japanese example, are there examples of like sci-fi that originate that is not just derived from, American version of it? Yeah,
there's tons. There's Italian, there's South American, there's Mexican, there's what else? Let's see.
No, but are any of those things like
a lot of African?
So first of all, do any of those things predate like the sci-fi that was developed? Turn of the
sci-fi. Wouldn't
I think it's all simultaneous.
Wouldn't Greek mythology be science fiction? Of like.
No. Like basically,
when does sci-fi start, and what is its definition?
It starts after. Starts after the industrial.
What?
No, the Industrial Revolution. Like after the Industrial Revolution, people writing about it because they were anxious. From then on, if you take that as the starting point.
So you're talking about.
Well, I don't. But anyway.
What do you take as the starting point?
I think it's by your definition, no, because you're defining a Western thing, and you're like, did anyone else come up with this?
It's entirely through Western point of view, basically.
You're like, well, there's like different things.
At that point, the point in history when people started to industrialize, it happened first in the West, and so I think that's what stimulated sci-fi. But I'm just curious if it when that hit in other parts of the world, if they developed their own sort of take on sci-fi,
I understand what you're saying, but I think in this instance, all you're doing is just.
What about? I guess that's Renaissance is, but paintings of of objects that fly that don't yet exist and stuff like that. Like what?
Yeah. That's almost universal.
What about the Chinese actually trying to create rocket ships and stuff way back when? Like I'm sure they wrote stuff about it back then, but it's not available to us, really.
And so it's not a question of what's out there and what exists. It's a question of what penetrates and gets through to you because of your entirely Anglo-centric culture and the fact you're not exposed to indeed.
I'm saying I don't know if there's any out there. And
I agree.
You're saying, oh, there definitely is, but can't name it.
There definitely is.
But you can't name it.
Well, I can think of a lot of stuff right now, but just but I don't even know what you're trying to say. Does other science fiction exist out there from other cultures?
No, I'm trying to say, example, I'm trying to say is let's say that rock and roll originates in America, and then other people do rock and roll. There's French rock and roll, which is there's British rock and roll. There's other versions of it. And you can say, fine, yes, they've made their own rock and roll, and obviously the British version is superior to the American version. So in certain ways,
that's the thing.
No, in certain ways, you can improve upon it, but it's still derivative. It's still they took everything they learned from early rock and roll in the States. But with things like Robotech and Neon Genesis Evangelion or whatever, you can say those are a very unique take on sci-fi. That you can say is different. Akira,
100%, yeah.
Akira, 100%, yeah.
In fact, you can even look at the Japanese culture stuff and say their take on nuclear stuff was pure evil and destruction. Godzilla, Akira. An American take on nuclear stuff was heroes and saving the world.
Except for Family Guy.
Except for Family Guy. What's that?
Peter tries to get. Except for Family Guy, where Peter tries to get superpowers, and then
so that you can get.
But anyway,
I love that disparity of their view of nuclear, which is so perfectly historical.
Yeah.
And the sci-fi that came out of it.
So Campbell, 2 against 1. Come on, name another culture that had a really fucking cool take on sci-fi.
But I just think of individual instances, not I don't think of stuff as being broadly cultural. Or I guess more to the point, I just see where you're going with this culturally, and I don't want to get out on the same limb with you. I'm going to let you get out there and further dig your own grave.
You go out on that limb and hang yourself from it. We'll watch.
Exactly.
No, I don't think you've had any points on this, but next week or whenever we do the next thing,
we'll discuss it.
Line up a few and see if there's something out there, because I'd be curious.
So you want to find science fiction that seems unique, but from a non-Western culture. Yeah,
a culture, a unique culturally different take on sci-fi, and Japan is perfect. That one has it for sure.
What about?
But I'm not sure that like the other guys who do it. I kind of feel like they just get inspired by what has been, and then they continue to
inspired by what has been.
I mean,
that's part of
yeah, exactly. I mean,
the universe.
No, I mean that's true to a certain extent, but certain things are like.
Well, no, but your rock and roll example is a great one because rock and roll is a combination of like black music, which came from Africa, and Western music from Europe, and got created, you could say, appropriated from all, and then revamped as a new type of music, for better or for worse. But that's like you can break it down as far as you want and say this is inspiration of that, inspiration of that, inspiration of that.
Yeah. No, definitely everything comes from something before. But like for instance, you'd say punk is different than
but not just that, not just in a linear fashion, in a constant fashion,
it can branch like a tree as well. But my point is,
I know, but I still think you're saying it in two linear terms. Because you think of something coming from something else. But I mean, even just to reference like the Japanese thing where you had in the 60s, Japanese and American cinema.
But it's even harder. Because you're judging by the science fiction by Western definitions of science fiction. And when I pointed out, say, Greek mythology from 2,000 years ago, which should sort of fit the bill. I guess it's Greek, so it's Western. But you're like, no, that's not science fiction. So you're like, it has to be science fiction by a Western understanding version.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very Westernized view.
No, it's not a Westernized view. Yeah. It's a genre view. Like it's like fantasy.
No, because your concept of the genre is defined by your Western cultural heritage.
Other countries have done this
has a definition. It has. I mean, I don't know. Fine. What is the definition?
Well, exactly. That's your problem. You don't know the definition.
No, but I'm asking you. I'm not asking you to just defend yourself by deflecting. I'm asking you a question.
Any work.
Yeah, but you're asking me to define what the definition of science fiction is.
Okay. Any work that's postulating the future.
All right.
Right?
What's that?
Any work postulating the future.
No, I mean, it can't be that, but I think that is much too narrow a term because there's obviously a lot of stuff that doesn't fall into that,
Well, yeah, for instance, Star Wars was set thousands of years before our time. So it doesn't have to be the future.
Exactly, but let's not include Star Wars in a science fiction thing because that's no help to anybody.
What? Why not?
It's just not any help to anyone. Star Wars is not really demonstrably or significantly science fiction.
We can't narrow it down to hard
just random.
Sci-fi. That gets even
crazier. All right. We'll shelve this until next week. But Campbell, come on.
What? Come on.
Well, give me something next time.
Give you something? I've got a lot of stuff, but I just don't like to.
I know. You're bursting at the seams to give it to me, but I'm just saying.
All right.
Get it ready.
We need you want a 2-minute clip that does not appear to be derivative of Western, but still falls under the science fiction tag, which we don't quite know what is the definition thereof.
Yeah. I think all these things have to be defined, but I'll return with better notes.
That is not the Japanese, because we already agreed that one's already solid.
Also,
again, I don't like how you use the word agree.
I have faith. You can do this.
Sorry,
Phil? I think you can do it. I have faith. I think you can find something. I'm not.
All right. We shall see.
All right. I'll see you months later.
All right. Nice work.
All right, G.
And then he just goes. Well, whatever. That's fine. And we're out. All right. And it's true. It's